They said something small, maybe nothing, really. And yet, hours later, you're still there. Not in the room you're sitting in, but back inside that moment. Editing, adjusting, replaying. You rewrite what you should have said. You defend yourself better this time. You imagine how they would have responded if only you'd phrased it differently. The conversation ended long ago, but not in your head. You tell yourself it's overthinking, but it's not. It's rehearsal, a survival pattern disguised as self-criticism. Before you go on, pause. Open your digital reflection journal. Write one thing you keep replaying lately, a sentence, a silence, a look. Don't try to fix it. Just describe how it feels to be stuck there. Because this reflection isn't about words. It's about why silence echoes. We often assume replaying conversations is a flaw of the anxious mind, a symptom of insecurity. But evolution didn't design the human brain to move on quickly. It designed it to learn relentlessly. Every replay, every mental rerun, is your brain attempting to extract meaning from discomfort, to make chaos logical, to turn uncertainty into safety. In primitive times, being misunderstood or excluded could mean death. You depended on the tribe not just for belonging, but for literal survival, protection, food, shelter. So your brain evolved to treat social friction as an emergency. That's why it lingers. Why your mind won't stop rehearsing. It's scanning for danger. It's asking, did I do something wrong? Am I still safe? Regret is a form of self-preservation, a rehearsal for future acceptance. But here's the paradox. The more you seek to feel safe through control, by perfecting past interactions, the less safe you actually feel. Because control is the one thing the past no longer offers. Deep within your limbic system lies the amygdala, a cluster of neurons evolved to detect danger long before logic kicks in. It doesn't speak in language or reason. It speaks in alarms. When someone dismisses your idea, ignores your message, or looks away mid-sentence, the amygdala doesn't interpret that as mild embarrassment. It reads it as a threat to your standing within the group. And so begins the spiral. Your heart races. You replay the scene to decode what triggered the signal. You look for the hidden danger, the invisible rejection. This is your brain running its ancient code. If belonging equals safety, then exclusion equals death. The problem is, the environment changed, but the code never updated. Your social circle is no longer your means of survival. Your physical safety doesn't depend on every text being answered. And yet, your nervous system reacts as if it does. You don't just remember what was said, you relive it. Because the amygdala doesn't know the difference between imagination and experience. It replays until you feel safe again. Neuroscientists discovered something extraordinary: social pain. The sting of being ignored, embarrassed, or left out activates the exact same neural pathways as physical pain. To your brain, silence hurts like fire. When you replay conversations, you're not indulging in drama. You're soothing an injury your mind doesn't know how to locate. Think of it as emotional triage. You revisit the scene like a detective searching for the wound. But what you're actually searching for is validation. You want to prove to yourself that you're not unworthy, that if the conversation had gone differently, you'd still belong. This is why apologies, even delayed ones, feel healing. They don't just close a story, they regulate a nervous system. But in their absence, your mind becomes both victim and medic, constantly reopening the scar to check if it's healed. And so the loop continues. The pain isn't in the words spoken, it's in the silence that followed them. So why didn't nature evolve us out of this? Why didn't it make humans emotionally fireproof? Because the replay is a feature, not a flaw. Early humans who replayed conflicts were better prepared for the next one. They learned faster. They anticipated outcomes. They survived. This was the original social rehearsal, an internal simulation to strengthen group intelligence. But in the modern world, where one careless text or facial expression can spiral into endless rumination, the same mechanism becomes maladaptive. We aren't fighting for survival anymore. We're fighting for perception. The evolutionary script remains the same, but the arena has changed. Instead of fearing exile from the tribe, we fear being misunderstood online. Instead of physical danger, we feel digital invisibility. And so, the ancient brain continues to rehearse, not to win arguments, but to keep belonging. You replay because somewhere, deep down, your body still believes every silence could mean extinction. Memory is not an archive. It's a painter, constantly retouching the canvas. Each time you replay a conversation, your brain alters it slightly, blending what happened with what could have happened. It does this not to deceive you, but to soothe you. Rewriting is how your mind reclaims control. Because powerlessness, the sense that you can't fix what's broken, is one of the most intolerable human emotions. When you imagine saying the perfect comeback or giving the perfect answer, you are not fantasizing for vanity's sake. You are performing neurological therapy. You are reshaping a chaotic memory into a coherent narrative, one where you are not helpless, one where you remain the author. But there's a cost to this coping mechanism. Every time you re-edit the past, the boundary between reflection and self-punishment blurs. You begin to confuse healing with control, and control is a moving target. The more you chase it, the more it escapes you. The truth is, the conversation doesn't need to be rewritten. It needs to be released. But the brain releases only what feels understood, and understanding rarely arrives in silence. Rumination feels heavy, yet strangely rewarding. That's because it's not just psychological, it's chemical. Each replay delivers a faint pulse of dopamine, a micro-reward for doing something about your discomfort. Your mind mistakes introspection for progress. It feels like you're solving a problem, even when you're simply circling it. This is the same neurochemical loop that drives addiction, the intermittent reward. You never know when you'll finally figure it out, so you keep returning for one more mental spin. That's why you reopen the message thread or draft imaginary replies to words that were never said. The brain dangles closure like a prize, and when it doesn't arrive, you double down, not because you enjoy the pain, but because you're hooked on the possibility of relief. Overthinking is the brain's equivalent of refreshing a page hoping new information appears. But no new data exists, only recycled emotion. The way out isn't through more analysis. It's through accepting that some circuits were never meant to close. To stop replaying, you don't need to silence your mind. You need to change how it speaks to itself. When the memory resurfaces, and it will, try responding, not reacting. Instead of, "Why did I say that?" ask, "What was I trying to protect in that moment?" That single shift turns judgment into curiosity. And curiosity is the opposite of fear. Begin to narrate the scene from compassion, not critique. Recognize that your past self was operating with the tools available at the time, limited, emotional, human. Each replay then becomes an invitation, not a punishment. An opportunity to meet yourself where you once stood and say, "You didn't fail. You were learning safety." Neuroscience calls this memory reconsolidation. When you revisit a painful memory in a calm state, the emotional charge weakens. You literally rewire the association. The next time your mind begins its late-night rehearsal, pause before diving in. Say to yourself, "We've learned from this scene. We can rest now." Over time, the replay loses its urgency, not because you forced it away, but because it no longer signals danger. Silence has always been the hardest teacher. It refuses to explain itself. In conversation, silence feels like rejection. In reflection, it feels like growth. The mind's deepest transformation begins when you stop needing to finish every emotional sentence. You start realizing that closure is not an event, it's a practice. There's a point where peace stops being the absence of noise and becomes the acceptance of uncertainty. To let silence be enough is to trust that your worth is not dependent on being understood. That belonging doesn't require explanation. That some stories heal not by being rewritten, but by being witnessed, once, gently, and let go. When you can sit with that stillness, when you can breathe without needing to replay, you rediscover the rarest human skill of all, contentment without control. Take a moment. Close your eyes. Notice if your mind is trying to return to any unfinished dialogue. Don't fight it. Simply whisper, "I hear you." Then, in your deep dive companion, write the conversation that lives rent-free in your head, but this time, write it from the perspective of understanding, not defense. Describe what you were trying to protect, what you were afraid to lose, and what you can finally release. Because the truth is, you were never overthinking. You were overprotecting. And protection, when no longer needed, can become peace.